Welcome back to the farm, everyone. Getting ready to cut some soybeans first thing this morning. Not much due, so they should run pretty quickly. If you're new here, although I would recommend subscribing to the channel and liking the video, I will not guarantee that you'll get that level of cinematography most of the time or ever again. I was just feeling particularly inspired and energetic this morning. If you watch yesterday's video, you will understand why I was up there moving the grain tank full sensors down. Supposedly, they've ordered in a new grain tank extension. I can't believe I missed it yesterday morning, but it was a busy day. We had a lot going on. I wouldn't have moved the sensors up at all if I'd realized that they'd taken the extension off that I watched them put on literally 12 hours before. Hopefully now Dad doesn't run over every single hopper over the front of the combine. He could use his eyes and look, but I must be asking too much. Every morning when we're cutting soybeans, we got to work through the fleet. Even though we only did a small amount of cutting yesterday, it doesn't take very many rocks to break cutter bar section, so got to do that. And first I'm going to raise the head because someone left it at short person level. And I'm not tall, but I'm not that short. Don't know what it beeped for. Immediately beeped. Opportunity where they're like, if every time you see a red car, I'll be... What did you beep about? Intake manifold air pressure circuit fault. Okay. Add that to the list of error codes. Oh man, I hope this X9's a good machine. You never know when you buy them used. It started. Intake manifold air pressure circuit fault. Someone said these have electrical issues, and they may be right. Send that code to Sloan's. They'll look at that on their end, and I can still service the head either way. Maybe I should try cycling the battery. That's the second issue we've had so far. The other one being the right separator loss sensor is also not working, so it could either be bad or having electrical issues. Again, not a good vote of confidence for the party of electrical issues on this combine. It's new, it's only cut 27 acres for us. It's got 500 hours on it from someone else before. Hopefully it's a good machine. Look at the hinge in this hinge flex draper. That's what it's supposed to do. Kind of have a frown to it. It forms to the ground better than a regular flex. It's just neat to see. Saw some on this last night that were broken. Where were they? 2 in a row. Probably one rock did that, or a piece of metal. Anything's possible. Wow, look at that speed. That's Sloan's for you. Quick service. Are you gonna need to run this? No. Okay. Ow. Take my gloves off and then immediately cut my finger. I have to take the rest of the day off.
Chris sent me out here for a grain loss monitor sensor.
That one's new this morning. The grain loss sensor one doesn't usually show up till it starts harvesting. Do you have the code for the grain loss monitor? I've got it on my phone.
I think so.
Yeah.
I was seeing if there was anything active, and I saw that.
That one literally, I just turned the key on to lift this up a second ago, and that showed up. That's brand new. I mean, did he call you? I sent him that code.
My phone's in the truck. He may have.
Okay. I just sent it to him 10 minutes ago. Sorry about that.
No.
You may be out here a lot working on this thing. Who knows? I got the first 3 done here. It's always a pretty good start to the day when you change a few of these and don't end up losing a bolt or a nut. There's a lot that can fall off into a very easy to lose pile of junk on the ground. Randy from Sloan's is here checking out that separator loss issue. Checked all of them with a tap test on the menu. You basically take a screwdriver to them and it shows if they work. The sensor in question did show up right, but then he noticed there's a bunch of wet chaff on the shaker and even around the rotors and below. Probably from last year. There's a chunk right there. And he thinks that maybe a combination of that wet stuff sitting on top was causing some kind of backfeeding over the sensor or something, causing it to rebuild up when we clean it. So hopefully he fixes that and then figures out what's wrong with the engine. I'm sure it'll all be cheap. Cheaper to have him working on it than to have it running and not being fully efficient.
Yeah, I'd say this is not getting the trash out like it needs to.
And there's a lot of cleaning area in this machine.
But once we crank her up, it should spit all this out.
What would cause it to build up like this? It was wet when it went through last year?
Yeah, just being wet and all the dirt, and then it would just, you know how sooty it was?
Yeah.
Just that black soot sitting on top of it, and then application after application sitting there right across it.
Yeah, and if anything
just
went through with moisture.
Just like painting with a brush.
Huh.
Adding the layers. That's the only thing I can do. I've had this happen on regular S-Series combines too. Truck around here and pull this out.
Okay, yeah, help yourself to whatever you need to. This is that sensor right there that's throwing the grain separator loss code, and then the panel's actually in here, and he thinks that this is the issue because these shake. As the combine harvests, they shake, kind of act like a gravity table backwards to sort out the material. And then this area right here was really caked over with that wet, rotten chaff from the last farmer. I'm not saying they did anything bad, he just says it happens, and we're hoping that's the issue. My morning service is done. Oil's been checked and everything. Randy's looking at that engine error code on the X9. It's funny when you look at these combines together. You got the X9 with the 45-foot draper and the 670 with the 30-foot draper. The X9 almost looks like it could have given birth to the 670. It is that much bigger. Cuts a bigger swath through the field. It's just a monster, as long as it stays working, which I'm hoping it will. It's about 8:30, sun's been shining, minimal dew overnight. Stems are starting to get kind of snappy. That one's a little bit flaccid. That means they're not gonna thresh great. They're closer to cutting than not cutting though. And then moisture, you do a little hand test, make sure the beans pop out of the pod. Then you throw her in the old tester. Whoa, about swallow that one. Oh yeah, those are dry. Heck, those are probably already 10%. We should be cutting by now. I'm in the 670 going to cut a sample. Randy's trying to decide if he can get that engine code to clear itself or if he needs to go get a new sensor. I'm betting he's gonna have to get a new sensor. It's amazing how something important and also seemingly not that important can be the difference between full power and partial power on a machine that needs all the power it can get. An empty semi finally showed up, so I might as well go dump the grain cart before I do anything. Give the 670 a couple more minutes to warm up. I don't know where the combine operators are. Dad was here for like 60 seconds 20 minutes ago, and Katie's nowhere to be seen. I like to think of myself as the only one other than Dad who's capable of doing every single job on the farm, from trucking to grain carting to combining, although I'm probably mediocre at best at all those jobs. Would you rather be a jack of all trade or a master of one trade? That's a great question. I'm a master of none. About time to get some new ink in the printer. Holy cow. This was from yesterday, 11.8% moisture on those beans, so they did pick up a little bit overnight, and we grossed 74,840. I guess I don't need gross, I need net. 48,400. Oh, I can't remember if that was the first truck or the second truck I loaded. 48,400 is 806 bushels, but we did add weight to that because we picked up moisture, so that makes comparing my scales to the truckload scales irrelevant. I'm gonna have to do it again on this one. There's the sample from yesterday. Good big beans. They look wetter than they are. These are probably closer to 12% after being on the cart. Some pods that we didn't get out. I'd rather have the pods with the beans in the sample than out the back of the combine. So that's kind of what we shoot for. As long as we test and don't get docked for foreign material in there, it's money to us. Why does she ever reel so fast? Does not. Slug her almost immediately. Everyone in my family runs their reel at light speed. I think Randy did go to get a sensor for that X9. Probably one of many this year. Moisture monitor showing anywhere from 12.5 to 14.5 this morning, even in these yellow-green looking beans. About time to start cutting. Yield monitor showing 65 on average for these between the two combines. The X9 showing closer to 70 bushels per acre on average. To be honest with you, these beans don't look as good out in the combine as they do from the road. I thought they looked a lot better than they do, and maybe they're yielding better than that. That's definitely the million-dollar question this year, is yields, because prices have gotten so low. You need a lot of yield to pay for your inputs. I was hoping these would be 80 bushel beans. They were planted early in March. We've got a good variety out here. Obviously the jury's not back until we get the official yields from the elevator. Looking based on my early calculations yesterday, they're running about 75 dry, maybe 74 dry. Our combine yield monitors are either a couple inches off or 5 miles off, so you never know with what crop you're in. If they make 75, we're not going to be disappointed. For reference, in Central Illinois, 75 bushel an acre is about average. So I know to some of you that's a lot of yield, but here that's going to pay the bills. It's going to keep the lights on because land costs are very high here. You're not going to go to the coffee shop and brag about 75 bushel beans though. Usually you don't brag until you get into the 90 bushel territory. If we get that X9 fixed, and it shouldn't take long, assuming they have that sensor in stock, I'll have an estimate on this 220 acre field by this afternoon. I don't know if we had too much water out here in July when we got 9 inches of rain in 8 days, or if the lack of rain in June hurt us, maybe not enough rain at the end. They look decent, just not as good as I thought they looked from the road. That spot's a little wet. 15, 14. Holy smokes, look at that sample. Butterbean after butterbean. Pod after pod. Those are going to need blended. Did a little switcheroo on back in the grain cart. Katie's in the 670 and the X9 still waiting on a sensor. Our savior Randy's back. Hopefully he gets that running. There's supposed to be some rain moving in tonight, tropical storms. When it's going to rain, we like to get the combines inside. So 300 acres we'd like to cut today. Whether or not that happens, that's not really in our control. We'll do our best unless something breaks. Get these early beans cut and then park everything in the shed and reevaluate. There's something almost poetic about the newer, bigger, badder X9 sitting there with a service truck while the S670 cuts away at a slower pace than the X9, but it is cutting.
800 field trip with Nora. Be back in about an hour and a half.
It's alive! Thanks, Randy. reason for that small strip is that's where the land from the two combines meet. Dad's running a 45-foot draper, Katie's running a 30. She's to the west, he's to the east, and that's the pass where they met. The issue was that it was a foot too wide for Katie. Dad left it for Katie because he thought it was 30 foot. Obviously it wasn't a perfect overlap. He's now cutting it back. That's why he tried to split it through so she could come cut it. First off, the unloading auger on that X9 is impressive. And that's only the X9 1000. The 1100 model is another bushel a second faster. It just chugs out the beans. Sample out of the X9, beautiful. The S670 doesn't quite look as good. That twin rotor is just beating the green beans out of the pods. Yeah, it's not perfect. However, I can tell just from the cab of the grain cart tractor that it's doing a darn good job. It does look like the grain tank full sensor is correctly realigned. He hasn't ran it over yet. Wouldn't rule it out for the day. We're moving. Just trying to keep the trucks up. Currently in a little bit of a bottleneck, which is unusual because we're short 2 drivers today. My Uncle Chris isn't feeling very well, so he's out. And then Nate, my brother-in-law, is on a field trip with his daughter. It's a good excuse to not be here driving, and he's not also an employee here, so he's kind of extra help. Jeff's running the semis on his own, and the X9 and the 670 can cut a lot of beans together. While we wait on Nate to get back from his field trip and Jeff to catch up a little bit, we're gonna go move my sprayer duals off of the 3rd grain trailer so we can get a 3rd trailer here at the field to keep up. Probably should have done it before we got started. We just aren't always that streamlined. Looks pretty safe. We successfully wasted 45 minutes, let the trucks catch up, and then Nate showed up, so we should be able to run pretty hard now. Back to harvesting, finally. 3 empty trucks sitting at the field. That is beautiful to the grain cart driver's eyes. We're cutting away, just finished off a nice, classy Subway lunch, courtesy of the boss man. I have made a rule for myself this harvest season and probably going forward completely. No onions on my sandwich. It's just not good for the smell of the cab. It's not good for my breath. It's just better off to not have them. Although they're flavorful and wonderful,
no onions in the tractor. And probably everywhere else. Whoa!
Careful you don't hit me with your unloading auger when you bring that around. You're good.
This X9 gets full so fast. It is a bean-eating monster. And it's got that acid vapor. Just a sweet rig. After a characteristically slow start for us, got about 120 acres cut so far, probably more than that. That X9 is really impressive. I think between the two machines, these beans are dry mostly, probably cutting close to 38, 39 acres an hour straight line. Not averaging that much, obviously, especially when you account for the 45 minutes we spent moving the tires and fixing the trailer Dad broke. We're getting along. Should have this finished this afternoon. Unless the elevator closes on us, because that'll be the only bottleneck. I don't know if we'll even be able to get to the next 80 because the elevators haven't extended their hours, and without extending their hours, we're shut down by 5 o'clock, let's say, and you know, an extra hour of cutting beans is a lot of beans cut. It's not enough though to finish an 80-acre field beyond the first 220 acres. Getting a lot done. Sloan's just showed up to show Dad how to run the X9. Day late and $1 short, I think, on that one. He's pretty much figured it out. But they're doing it because it's time for us to learn. And I think they need a little more localized training in the same department. Respectfully speaking, there's only 2 X9s in Mattoon. One of them being my wife's family, and then this X9 we bought. So there's not a lot of them. Whereas some Sloan's dealerships may have 20 X9s out of them. So a little bit of a disparity there in experience.
Nate, you driven that truck before? Do you need any instruction or anything? I think I got it figured out. Everything's the same except for the gear shifter twist on like your windshield wiper area on the right side. I saw it. Already tried it out.
Nate, you have to have a foot on the brake before it goes in gear. See that sand spot right there on the front of us?
You think that's sand, or you think is that where the old ditch used to go, or is that further to the north?
That 45-foot draper on the X9 is huge. We're down to the last, I don't know, 20 acres, 25 acres or so. Elevator's closing at 5. They're not extending their hours yet. There's some people cutting beans, just the masses aren't running yet with corn or beans, so they're not gonna get overtime help in, pay people extra at the elevator. And we're not taking it to our bin yet. Pretty much that means once we finish this field, we're gonna have to quit. We've got another 85-ish acres across the road that would probably cut exactly the same. It's just not gonna line up for us because the elevator is gonna close and we're gonna run out of space. Man, this is getting dusty out here. Beans gotta be running 9 to 10%. I haven't even seen what the combines are saying or what the scale tickets are saying. I've just been grain carting.
Dump some off, Andy, so I can get to the other end.
The X9 is definitely keeping me a hair busier than the 780 would have been. It fills up pretty quick. We need to get that extension on there. It's going to make a big difference. Pay attention so we don't run over the cart. Wow. 8.5% moisture. That's too dry. That's what I was afraid of. Why would you terminate my remote display connection? I was trying to read it, but who taught you how to exit out of it?
Things an old dog on toes.
Oh man, let's try it again. Watch him exit out of it again. 8.6 moisture. The dry yield average has gone up. It was showing 69. Like I said, I think these beans are running in the low to mid 70s actually. We'll know because every bushel's gone through the auger wagon so far. So the scale should have everything. 8.6 though, that's way too dry. I mean, we're talking 4.5%. That's 6 bushel an acre loss just because our beans are too dry. The hard part is that the beans aren't even completely mature because we've got green beans coming through the grain tanks. Soybeans are tough. Corn's so much easier than beans. It's usually pretty uniform in moisture. Field matures relatively even. Beans are all over the place. Look at the hinge draper cutting over the terrace right there. That's some serious flexing. Wow. That was really cool. And for a few small payments of $30,000 a year, you too could have a hinge draper like that. Look at that. I'm driving this way because I need to catch Dad on the other side. That is really impressive. It didn't get them all. It's just never going to get them all. Got a lot of them. Cleaning out to quit because there's only 90 foot or so, maybe 70 foot left that Katie's cutting back, so she'd have like a round left after that. This is probably all we're going to get to today. Chance of rain in the morning, so planning on getting everything empty except for the trucks and the cart. Put the combines in the shed so they don't get wet. Drapers can stay out. and then maybe if it doesn't rain, we'll cut again tomorrow. Cutting 9% beans that look like that. So much green in them still. They're averaging out, which is the point of averaging moisture. I hate how they've not matured very evenly. You're supposed to put your head on your card. Is that why you kept stopping? Katie's gonna unhook her draper and head in. Dad's gonna cut around this next field, or cut a little bit. I don't know how much he'll get done. We'll load the cart and then we'll quit for the night. Or maybe we'll do something completely different. That was just the last thing I was told. Dad just crossed the road ditch with the 45-foot draper to get into the next field to start it. This should be my last dump with maybe a little bit left over. I'll be able to do the napkin math on what these beans made. Last time we checked with the combine, and it's been 60 minutes ago, the yield average between the two machines was like 70 and change, not quite 71. Average moisture, I believe, was 10.5, maybe 10.8. I guess we don't have to do napkin math. LibreCart does everything for you. According to the scales on the grain cart, which are usually pretty close, they could be % high or low. 221 acres of late March planted Pioneer 34 A98 soybeans made 74 bushels an acre. That's what we've been waiting to find out all year. I know, some of you here would be tickled pink to have 74 bushel beans. I said it earlier, it pays the bills, but nothing worth bragging about, especially after how much I talked up these March beans all year. I wasn't being deceitful either. I thought we had higher yield potential out here. I was thinking 80 at a minimum with how much vegetative time they had. The question now becomes, how did we leave bushels on the table? What did we do wrong, or was it weather related? Obviously we can control drainage to some degree by installing a lot of drain tile. This farm probably doesn't have enough. Some surface work. We can't prevent it from not raining. You're not going to spend the amount of money this land costs here in central Illinois and then also put irrigation on. That's just not the way it works. I'm going to give it a few minutes for all the data to load up in the operations center, and then we're going to look at the yield map. There's some different topographical changes in the farm soil types, and I think that may give us a rough armchair estimate of, did we not get enough rain or did we get too much rain? Or both, which we can't really account for both. This field that Dad's opening up right now, that we won't obviously finish today, will actually tell us if too much rain was an issue, because it's a lighter soil, mostly well drained, except for on the north end it's got some swampy low-lying soil. If the higher, lighter spots out yield or yield tremendously, then we know that drainage is our issue. And I definitely agree that you can't grow great soybeans without good drainage. So we'll look at the yield map here in a second on the other farm. Here is that field. It's not all loaded yet, and keep in mind there's two different combines, so you're going to get some disparity. I can even that up on the computer. I just can't really do it on the iPad. What I was looking to see from a yield perspective was what was causing a lot of yield loss. This right here is from the two different machines running. One's green, one's not. This is really low-lying, dark soil. The yield isn't spectacular, and even in the best spots we're looking at 76 to 84 bushel beans. I didn't see a lot of top end in this yield. I was expecting to see triple-digit yields in a lot of places. I noticed that the highest yielding places through here were the highest moisture. Sometimes I think that's because you're cutting wet beans, you're getting more wet chaff and material into the tank and wet pods. Also, maybe the wetter spots are higher yielding. What makes me think that the rain was part of the issue is how red it is here on the higher ground. This is higher productive soil, just not the best in the world. And seeing this much 50 bushel beans through here really ensures to me that we did not get enough rain either in June or July. One thing that tells me that maybe too much rain was an issue when you get to the southwest side of the super productive area that is super low lying, doesn't have enough tile, dark ground. Usually if it's dry and doesn't rain too much, you have your best yields here. We didn't though. So we may be on both sides of the coin where we had too much rain at one time and it hurt the lower lying areas while helping the side hills, and then we didn't have enough rain in other crucial times and it has the opposite effect, and it evens out to 75 bushel beans across the field without any real top end. Again, other than maybe through here where the beans were super wet, I'm not sure the yield monitor ever hit triple digits. And a lot of fields with today's varieties, hitting triple digits is not hard. I don't think it's a variety issue. These 34-898 Pioneers are good beans. They didn't really mature evenly. I've heard some seed agronomists say that beans not maturing evenly at the end has to do with a lack of rainfall on the tail end. I mean, we can say that. The question is how many bushels did we leave out here? Because we got an early start. They got early vegetative growth. That's what's key to maximizing the top end of your soybean yield potential. You also need everything else to fall in line. You need the rains at the right time, and you don't need too much rain. So I think we got hit on both sides here. Maybe we could have done something better from a day-to-day farm practice to help it. Obviously, infrastructure investment would be the biggest difference maker, especially on soybeans. They don't like wet feet, and we had 8 inches of rain in 7 or 8 days in July. It's just not good for high-end potential. Not enough rain when we needed it, and too much when we didn't. Or it's none of those factors and we just suck. And that's a possibility. We're pretty average, on average. Most of the early bean reports I've heard so far are in the upper 70s to lower to mid 80s. We're not that far behind. I was just expecting a lot higher yields through here. They were really hyping up yields on soybeans. I'm not seeing it yet, but we barely dipped our toes into harvest. The worst part is that those were probably the best planting conditions we had all year in March. Beautiful seed bed, beautiful planting. Yeah, they got a 3-inch rain a couple days after their planting. That's not ideal, but they mostly came up fine. We had a good stand. I'm a little bit scared to see what awaits us beyond these few fields. We'll have some that I'm expecting to be better. Overall, I bet you most of them are worse. Too much water and not enough, and we have soils that aren't forgiving either way. It's the quitting time dump, and not that kind. The kind where we empty out the combine, shut the door, and wait for the rain. Or it doesn't rain, we cut more tomorrow. Either way, I'm going home. That's all that matters to me. Dad's gonna unhook his draper when the head cart shows up, and I'm gonna try to tarp this silly tarp. Terrible tarp. It's supposed to be spring assisted, but it doesn't hardly work like it's assisted at all. It feels like it's zero assist. Be called a zero assist tarp. Oh wow, that worked perfectly. It's untargeted. I'll save my complaints for that. based on the speed he was driving, I'd say he's ready to go home too. Okay folks, that's it for today's misadventures. Hope you enjoyed the video or learned something, or maybe even took a nice peaceful nap to the background noise of our farm. Either way, appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Peace!